Barack Obama is holding on to his lead in the national polls as well as many of the key swing states. But can John McCain close the gap in the final days? Today's daily Gallup tracking poll of likely voters shows Obama's lead is now 8 points. It was 10 points earlier this week. Joining us now to break down the numbers is Democratic pollster Bernard Whitman. Bernard, you guys have got to be feeling pretty good, the Democrats, right now, as you look at these numbers. Do you expect that these numbers are going to continue to tighten as we've seen over maybe the last day or so?
I think that the race, if you look at all the polls, the race is about 7 points. And as we go into the final days of this election, I think the polls might tighten a bit. And ultimately, by the time we get people into the polls, I suspect there'll be a spread on Election Day of about 3 or 4 points between Barack and John McCain. But you know, Brian, this race has been extraordinarily difficult to call. And so it may tighten or widen a bit even beyond that.
All right, let me ask you the question about undecided voters and how they may break in the last days. I mean, what is your sense about that, your intellectually honest sense about it?
Well, we've got 7 points roughly of undecided voters. And historically, undecided voters break about 2 to 1 against the incumbent or against whatever party is holding that office. So I would expect about 4.5 points of that undecided to go to Barack Obama and about 2.5 to go to John McCain.
All right, now here's the other equation that everybody has to talk about. It's a delicate issue. It involves the issue of race and something known as the Dinkins-Bradley-Wilder effect. I talked to Doug Wilder about it actually just a few days ago, and there's some sense out there that the polls may represent that Barack Obama is doing better than he actually turns out to do. At what level do you put this Bradley-Dinkins-Wilder effect?
I think there's two issues here, and one of which has been talked about a lot, that's the Bradley effect, and I think ultimately that's probably potentially and unfortunately worth about 1 to 2 points off Barack Obama's vote total. But I think what is even more of a factor here is turnout, estimating turnout among groups that disproportionately favor Obama. New voters, undecided voters, right, young people, and independents who typically don't turn out as much. Now, ultimately, it's going to come down to the ground game. I think you have to take off a few points based on that, but if you add the points back from the undecided voters, that's where I think at the time that we go into the polls, that 7-8 point lead is probably going to go down to about 3 or 4 points.
Well, that's not that. It's still very, very close then. That's
very close, but you know, John McCain's got to run the tables and win right. Colorado, he's got to win Virginia, he's got to win Ohio, he's got to win Florida, and I think ultimately the fact that he is now defending himself in these states is going to make it very difficult for McCain to prevail in Election Day.
Bernard, we're going to have to leave it right there. Thank you for joining us here. Greatly appreciate you joining us on your
Thanks
Saturday.
So much.
All right.